Hi, welcome to Spotlight on the Intelligence. I've got Alex Boschel with me here today. How you doing, man?
I am doing great. How about yourself?
Not too bad. It's Thursday afternoon. I just woke up like 2 hours ago, so you know it's going to be a good one when you get to sleep in.
Where are you located?
So I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. How about you?
Okay, Washington, D.C.
Okay, how do you like it there?
I love it. It is, I think it's the best city in the United States. I love the historic parts of it. I love the metro. I didn't even know I loved it before I moved here a couple years ago. My wife helped me fall in love with it, and now I can't see myself ever living anywhere else.
Beauty. I was going to say, I actually just went through DC not too terribly long ago. Like in July, ate at my first and judging on my income, my last Michelin star restaurant ever. It was incredible experience. I loved the place. I saw a rat the size of a small dog in an alleyway outside the Michelin star restaurant. It was incredible. Such a well-rounded experience. What do you like most about DC?
I love that I don't need to drive anywhere. I could just hop on a bus or the metro or bike, uh, and that just is so much more fun to me.
Oh, I could definitely see that being an improvement. Driving around was it was a stress.
Oh, driving in DC is one of the worst places you could ever drive. I've driven in Manhattan, I've driven in Boston. I still think driving in DC is by far my least favorite. It is horrendous. What did you
What,
come here for?
what do you mean?
What did you come through DC for? Was it just to visit?
I was so visiting all the different surrounding adjacent cities in like imagine I come from a small like one stoplight town called Littlestown, Pennsylvania. It's like 15 minutes out of
Oh,
Gettysburg, and it just
cool.
happens to be while there's not much to do there, it is a nexus of like 2 to 4 hour drives between all of the East Coast cities. So we saw like Philadelphia, we saw oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. We
Baltimore?
we hit like 4 or 5 cities.
That's amazing. My wife's parents have a cabin up 15 minutes north of about 15 minutes north of Gettysburg in Aspers. Have you heard of Aspers, Pennsylvania?
Can't say that I have.
It's also really small. I don't even know if they have a single stoplight, so I wouldn't blame you if you haven't.
Well, enough about geography, I guess. Let's rip into the actual interview portion. I'm curious to know like who is Alex Michelle? What do you do?
I run an EDM record label. I make music myself as well, but for the past 5 years, my main focus has been promoting and producing music.
What's the name of your label?
Sporation music.
This is my first time with a label runner on the show, and mostly we've done artists up to this point. So I feel like I can get a whole bunch of unique information from you, and I'm really excited for it. Could
Uh,
you tell me more about what you do for the label?
yeah, of course. I started in my music promotion journey in 2020. I was taking an online music marketing class that was pretty subpar, but I met someone named Andrew Southworth in that class, and he is a huge like music marketing YouTuber. He talks about how to use meta ads to promote music. And so that was the first method that I started using that really seemed to work for me. So I released a bunch of songs, used that method to start promoting, and somewhere around 2022, 2023, I developed a pretty nasty sleep breathing disorder, and I just like lost all of my energy. I couldn't think creatively. I was doing a really bad job of making music. So my way of continuing to push my career forward was to just do the promotion part because that's pretty straightforward and not as creative, and just do that for other people while I get my health back and then start creating again. So that is how I fell into running a label, sort of by accident.
Okay. Interesting. I was going to say I don't want to be too personal, but so it sounded like sleep apnea, like times sleep apnea on steroids. Am I hearing you correctly, or was it more specific than that?
It was it's kind of like sleep apnea. It's called upper airway resistance syndrome, which some doctors think is just like a lesser version of sleep apnea. Some think it's a completely different thing. I don't really know. All I know is that I was sleeping like 12 hours a night, waking up 20 times, felt horrible every day, and couldn't think straight. So, uh, That's all. Yeah, that's all I know about it at the moment.
Yeah, no, sorry for the deviation right there. I
Oh, you're
related
totally
to
fine.
that. I got diagnosed with sleep apnea and proceeded to not do anything about it. I don't use a CPAP or anything, so I'm here in all of my oxygen deprived greatness right now running interviews.
How do you
I,
do? I don't know how you can do that. I'm impressed.
I lost a bunch of weight and I think that helped. But that you don't look like you have a lot to lose, man.
No, that was the weird thing. It's like the typical sleep apnea patient is super overweight and typically like 50, 60 years old or older. Um, yeah, I had none of that. It was the main reason for it, I think, was I had a tongue tie and that was just kind of holding my tongue back in my throat while I slept. But also was super deficient in vitamin D. Once I fixed both of those things, like things were on the up and up.
The sun is the cure. So sorry for the deviation. I've got powerful ADHD. Let's get back on track. So it sounded like you used this not scheme is the wrong word. You used this promotional tactic as a way of staying busy, as a way of doing work while you were uh, indisposed. So I guess
Exactly.
I'm curious. I heard a mention of meta ads. How do you from like the Facebook ad days to now? How is your promotional strategy changed?
A lot of it hasn't changed. I still do a lot of the same things as I did back when it was just like Facebook ads. Um, I've always run ads to both Instagram and Facebook. They just recently renamed it Meta Ads, so I've just changed how I call it, but it's all pretty similar since the beginning. The main thing that has changed is just my perception of what's possible with Meta Ads. I originally viewed it as a way to kind of get exposure and then it be some sort of like I would lose money on it, but downstream that it would help me get my music out there more and then maybe sell merchandise. But over time, I found that some songs would just get pretty big with meta ads, and that it was possible to return a profit through Spotify digital sales while just using meta ads to push it. So that kind of altered my strategy, and my goal is to just build a bigger pool of streaming revenue. That's my favorite mechanism for um, getting revenue in the music industry. And so meta ads has been a really good way to increase that pool.
Incredible. So, as somebody who has also lost a bunch of money on meta ads for the purpose of music self promotion, I'm curious as to what you think made the difference and made it start to get you out of the red, make it be worth the money, so to speak.
Yeah, the main thing was I just needed to put a little bit of money into a bunch of different songs, find the song, find the songs that could do really well with the promotion, and then put more money into those, and then cut all the other ones. And with meta ads, a lot of people will they'll test the audience, they'll test visuals, they'll test all of these things, but really the thing to test is just the song. And so I test a ton of songs. I typically put like $100 into each one. If they do well, I'll go up to 500, and then once I hit that mark, I'll cut the campaign, wait a couple of months. If the song keeps growing or stays pretty steady with its streams after the campaign is over, that's when I shove a whole bunch more money into it, because those are the kinds of tracks that will be able to return a profit through like Discover Weekly, radio algorithms, just people listening in their own libraries and playlists, that kind of thing.
Definitely. I think there's two schools of thought, right? I've talked to a lot of artists who are like, if the music is quality, it will take care of itself. And a lot of people are like, you can push anything with the proper marketing scheme. And I think
Yeah.
you've arrived at the right middle ground where it takes an understanding of like what the quality song is to be justifying the purchase. And in your experience, with having put out songs that I assume both did well and didn't do as well, what kind of difference of song makes it marketable?
I have no idea. And I tell people all the time, like, I'm not the arbiter of good music. When I accept demos for my label, it's just because I like them and it fits the general genre that I'm promoting. I have no idea if it's going to do well. I've had plenty of songs that I thought this is the one, it's going to do amazing, and it did horrible. And I've had plenty of songs where I thought I let this one squeak by. Maybe I shouldn't have released it, and then those are the ones that do really well. It's totally random. That's why I test every single song.
I like the systematic process of testing. I try to do a little bit of that myself with some call it some counsel from a marketing expert. But I just think that at the time I was in over my head and not prepared to do the stringent level of A/B testing that it takes to actually learn from the statistics. So I applaud you for having that level of patience.
Thank
Um,
you.
you
Hard to
you
develop.
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, you said a lot of things I want to ask about. So bear with me while I organize my thoughts a little bit. You
Oh
said
yeah, go ahead.
you accept music that you like and because it fits the genre. What genre does your label represent?
It's like a gaming EDM, so a lot of like future bass, melodic house, progressive house, like more like pop oriented EDM tracks.
Okay. Or who are some examples of artists that have released with you? If you don't mind me asking, are you allowed to disclose that?
Yeah, I don't know if you'll know any of their names. Maybe some of the vocalist names. We've released with Scarlett, Jamie Duraz, Marin Hoxha. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing his name right. Robbie Rosen, Farah. He's someone who collaborated with the Fat Rat on one of his tracks. Those are the larger ones that come to mind. Most of the artists I work with are not like they're not even close to being in the mainstream. They're pretty low key.
That's okay. I like you. I'm out here to evaluate the quality of the music, not the clout, which I always appreciate labels and business admin that represent on behalf of good music. So,
Correct.
um, what do you do for a client or for someone on your label? What like why would somebody release with you?
So all of the promotion we do is pretty much focused on streaming royalties. And so our deal is a 50-50 net revenue split. So net revenue split is just we spend the money and we recoup the money. And once we recoup it, we'll split it half between the label, half between the artist. And we run two main types of campaigns. So we do playlisting, which pretty much anyone in music has an idea of what that is. And then we also do the meta ad campaign for the individual song. So with the playlisting, we're also still running ads for that. So we run ads to a playlist. That playlist ranks pretty highly in Spotify search terms. So we get a pretty decent number of streams from that. And that playlist itself breaks even on the money we put into it. So that kind of is just like a ball of streaming activity that we can give every artist no matter what, regardless of how their song performs individually. And then in addition to that, we run an individual song campaign that will push their song deeper into the Spotify algorithm. And if that does well, we just keep putting money into it until it no longer does well. We haven't spent more than $2,000 on an individual song yet, but there are a couple right now that probably will be able to get more put into it just because they're performing so well. And then aside from that, simpler things like accounting, the distribution, album artwork, and then like a social media post. But a lot of labels tout social media posts as like, this is this huge thing we're giving you. Yeah, it's like a tiny little thing. It almost doesn't matter at all.
Okay. I like that you're able to give such a detailed breakdown on what services you can provide because I think a lot of independent artists nowadays they fall into this trap of thinking that they get a label and they're set, and then the label proceeds to just take their chunk, doesn't do a lot on behalf of the artist. I'm curious. I actually have quite a handful of questions that I'll shoot off here. Is
Mhm.
there any upfront cost for the artist to release on your label, or do you take the song on the good faith that the song will make the money?
Doesn't cost anything to release with us. We're really betting on the song making money itself.
That's awesome. I'm curious. So also, I do a little bit of Spotify playlisting. I work for Lazy Pug, and I curate some of their playlists. And I'm curious to know what the process of playlisting a song is for you guys.
Yeah, mostly it's just doing it, putting their song on our own playlist. Our main playlist is a no copyright music playlist. It's geared towards Twitch streamers, so they can just use that on their Twitch stream. So we run ads to our own playlist, and then the entire playlist is just the songs that our label releases. We don't put other submissions on there. Sometimes we will use Submit Hub to give a little extra push to some people's songs. We usually don't do that, but there are a couple of curators that accept almost every song we send. So it's usually worth it for the $2 to get it playlisted on their network as well.
I'm familiar with no copyright sounds. I've been rejected from them for a handful of submissions.
So have I.
Which is just me. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm just trolling. So in other words, the playlisting is not necessarily to mass put it out to other people's playlists, but to support the label's own playlist. And it almost creates like a feedback loop of like you get good quality music on there, you throw them up on the playlist, it pays for itself. I like the business model.
Correct. I do too.
if we can redirect here, I want to ask about what makes a good meta ad.
Ooh, yeah. The big obvious one is the song being something that a lot of people are going to like. Doesn't have to be super high quality. Low quality songs have done well, but a song that a lot of people are going to like, there's no way to predict that. So on the things that we can control, the main things, there's a couple of categories. So there's the creative itself, like the visual that you're using in the ad. There's the setup of the campaign itself, and then the song. So we're not going to talk about the song, but on the campaign setup, there are so many small settings that have to be exactly right, or Meta will just completely flop for a campaign. And that is super frustrating. And it's also changing every week. I go into someone's ad account and I'll see something I've never seen before. And they have certain settings where they will tell you that this setting will improve your results. And they do improve your results on Meta, but then nothing happens on Spotify. And that is like one of the biggest problems people run into with Meta ads. The creative side, on like the visual front, the visuals that I run are ridiculously simple. Like anyone can make these visuals. It's just stock footage that I get from Pexels, or I'll hire someone from Fiverr to like put together some scenic Minecraft footage, and they'll just plop the album artwork on top of it, put the Spotify logo above that, and then just have the song playing. I'll have different sections of the song that I'll test, and that's pretty much the ad. I do sometimes do more complicated creatives because sometimes they do help bring the cost down and increase engagement on the song, but that is fairly rare. So most of my ads are these super simple, like dumb, easy ads.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? I believe
right.
very heavily, like the beauty of simplicity. Like if it works and is relatively easy to come by, I think people have a tendency to overcomplicate things.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
If I can go ahead and overcomplicate it, I'm curious to know. You said there's a lot of small settings that have to be dialed in, and that they're currently changing. I'm curious if you can shine some more light, perhaps, on what those small settings are.
Yes. So there are two. Well, actually, we'll talk about three main ones. So the first one is it's super, super important to send people from the ad to a landing page and not directly to the streaming service. Sending them to a landing page where they then click on the streaming service they want to go to is important, because that's where you can put the tracking device that Meta gives us. So it's easier to optimize for people who are more intentional about going to listen to the song, and we want those people. Also, it just gets rid of the issue of like bot traffic that could just be automatically clicking on the ads, and so getting around all the click fraud stuff that goes on especially Facebook. The landing page helps prevent that. So having a landing page increases friction, but increases engagement on the song. So it's a little counterintuitive, but it's been super important. The next one is there's this thing called Advantage campaign, or Advantage Plus Audience. Advantage Plus Audience essentially is Meta's response to all of the privacy settings that are being put in, which ultimately the privacy settings are good. So that's all right. But the privacy settings make it harder to track people and harder to optimize ads. So Meta is using this thing called Advantage Plus Audience to help your ads find an audience without tracking people as intensely. The problem with Advantage Plus Audience is it's so good at getting the result you tell it to get that it sacrifices anything that happens after that result. So if I'm trying to get streams on a song on Spotify, I can't tell Meta to track that. I can only tell Meta to have people click on a landing page to go to Spotify. And so Meta can get me tons of those clicks, but then nothing happens on Spotify. And it's hard to tell why that is. But that's a big problem that comes up with that setting. And then Advantage Plus Placements, similar kind of deal. If Meta sends your ads out to their partner sites, so that's like people showing ads on other websites, other applications, and it's not on Facebook or Instagram, you get a lot of the same thing where you get tons of conversions on Meta and things look great, but then on Spotify, nothing's happening.
Interesting. It's honestly it's incredible to hear that all laid out from somebody who's familiar with it because like as an independent artist myself and representing on behalf of independent artists who have to navigate this sort of thing without help, this is many of the pitfalls and why we land in them kind of just like laid bare. So this is honestly great stuff. I'm loving it so far.
Good.
Let me see if I can redirect to a little bit more about your journey and how you arrived here. So I guess what I want to backtrack to is like you had slash have a career in music yourself. How did you get started on that?
I I decided my senior year of college to take music seriously. I studied computer science in undergrad, and when I graduated, I worked for my fraternity for a year, and so I basically lived out of my car and just traveled between or among a bunch of campuses in the Northeast United States, helping different chapters to recruit, develop, and manage crises if they happen. And so that was only a 1 year long job, and so it ended right about when all the COVID problems started. So it was kind of the perfect time to just not get myself into something else and just try to do music. It was like the first year I did it, I had a decent amount of savings from my job, and I also worked a lot in college, but um, I definitely spent way more money my first year than I made in music. And so that wasn't much of a, it didn't seem like much of a career at that point. My second year was pretty similar. It's like I made almost nothing at all. And then I started picking up some wedding DJ gigs on the side. That helped me get through some of the very low income times. It helped me to pad my family's budget. We eventually moved out of our apartment, found a really cheap place. And then somewhere around like year 3 or 4, I think it was around year 4, I started doing this kind of meta ad promotion for clients as like a for hire basis. And so I was able to quit the DJing. That was my main source of income. And then that gave me some room to start the label, because you can make a decent amount of money in like streaming royalties, but they take an insanely long time to build up and a lot of money up front to build up. So it's like it requires a heavy amount of investment. So I basically just funneled everything I was making from doing ads for clients into the label to try to grow that. And now I'm 5 years in and I'm finally making like a very normal person amount of money. So I can actually like breathe a little bit. But it's like, it took a really long time to just be at a place where if I had just taken a computer science job out of college, like I'd be making way more. But yeah, worth it.
No, I mean, I feel like what can you put a price on happiness and satisfaction, right? Like I
No,
take
that's
it from
correct.
somebody. I went to college for biochemistry, and I was
Ooh.
actually on the med school route, and that COVID gave me like a very abrupt rude awakening in terms of like the amount of I had actually been volunteering at a physical therapy clinic for the entirety of my college duration, only to find out from my advisor post graduation and post MCAT that none of that experience would be considered as volunteer hours because it didn't occur at an actual hospital.
Oh gosh.
So like at that point, like I have this decision to make. Am I going to restart the process of volunteering for the very first time, or am I going to pursue things that make me happy? And I think too that like a lot of people have this idea that working in music is like being the star of the show, being on stage, making hits, stuff like that. Nobody gives nearly enough credit to the admin guys that make that sort of thing happen for other people. You guys do a crucial job. It's like I don't want to pigeonhole you by saying that that's what you were meant to do. In fact, like I'd love to hear that your own personal music is going well too. But I think that if anyone's equipped to make it happen, it's somebody who's also familiar with operating behind the scenes as well.
For sure. It doing all of the back end promotion, the admin stuff, it's helped a ton, because now if I make a song, I just plug it into this system. I don't have to do much else for it. I just follow the same formula that I'm doing for other songs, and that makes that side of things a lot easier. I don't love making social media posts. I do because I feel like I have to, but I like to be able to just like stick the song into this machine and just have it do its thing.
You took the words right out of my head. I was going to say, what a beautiful machine you've created to be able to function in a way that you don't have to think about so hard anymore. If I could ask, I guess, like a different type of question. So what you're doing, not necessarily as a label, but like as a freelance promoter and advertiser, or previously freelance, what's your take on all of these pop-ups, these 50K Instagram accounts that slide into the DMs with the, hey, we'll promote your music and just pay us $300 and we got you, we'll make you an overnight success. It's like, do you have experience with predatory advertising and promoter companies?
A ridiculous amount of experience. Those, I get those in my inbox every single day. I haven't used any of them. Luckily, I have not fallen prey to them. I almost fell prey to one scam, and you may know about this one. Other people may have seen it, but they're like, "Hey, it's my son's birthday. We want to pay you to make a song for my son." And then they'll say, "Oh, we'll offer you $400 to do it." You're like, "Yeah, great, sounds good." And then they send you like a check, and they're like, "Oh shoot, we accidentally sent you the wrong amount. Could you send us back X amount, and then you can just cash this one?" And then of course they take that amount you sent back and then don't ever send you the right one. It's just a bounced check. I didn't fall for it. I almost did. But yeah, tons of those. They're almost all fake. It's insane. But I have noticed too that even if I do have something that's real, it's so hard to like do cold reach out, because people just automatically assume that if it's music promotion and if you're sliding into their email inbox or DMs, that it's fake.
Do you do anything to distinguish yourself as an authentic promoter, as a real label? Any you like, is it just, do you operate on credibility alone, something you can refer to people to show you that you are the real deal?
Yes, a couple of things. The main one is I do a lot of work with Genera Studios and Forbid Media. So those are ad agencies that are credible. So I can point to that. I also just to get a client that I work with one-on-one, I don't advertise that I do that kind of service. I just run the label, I show the results of the label, and then people ask me if I can do it for them. And that's when I am able to take on a client. So that method has been a lot more productive than trying to do outreach and convince people to use my service. I just tell them exactly what I'm doing, show the results, and then people ask me if I can help them with it.
I like it. It seems very organic. It's not too pushy. It just seems like a natural flow of events. You can do something better than they can. You already did it for them. They can continue to reap that benefit with no, like comparatively low risk, it sounds like.
Right.
I guess what I want to ask is, I want to give you an opportunity to flex right here. So like in terms of label releases, both personal and for people that you've worked for, what's been like your number one or like top three hits? What did the best?
I've got a couple. So one of the top stream songs is my song, but I released it like 3 years before I started the label. So it had 3 years of runway. So that one barely counts. We have a song by an artist called Qfish, who has a song called Keep Holding On to You. That one is doing super well. We put in money for an initial campaign, and that song's just been pumping out like 50,000 streams per month since we did the initial campaign. It's crushing it. Another song by an artist, we just released it in, oh gosh, I think September, but within the first month, we got it up to 30,000 streams. It's now doing like 60,000 this past month after the campaign was turned off. That's the kind of song where I think if we just bite the bullet and put in a huge budget, that it can get to 1 million easily within a year. We haven't had a song hit 1 million yet, which is unfortunate because I would love to have that on my my resume. But we are getting a little over 1 million monthly streams from the label as a whole. But those are the songs that are at the top right now.
1 million monthly streams is nothing to it's I mean, it's an incredible achievement is what I want to say. I was gonna I like that you've got goals and projected future hits, but like most indie artists that I'm familiar with cannot even conceive of a 1 million monthly streams. So kudos.
Thank you.
What for both your label and for your personal music, what social media platforms have you found besides Meta that made the most difference? Is
Probably
it
Threads, but that is
okay?
also Meta kind of.
You know, go ahead.
I was just gonna say Threads is like I can just post the results of, and this is a super new development. It's like the past week it started working, but I just post the like stream count of songs and say how much we spent and how long it's been since the release, and then it just like gets likes and reposts and questions, and so that's been really helpful. For my personal artist project, Discord was pretty great. We'd play Minecraft together with the people who listen to my music, and that was like the most fun thing. I haven't done that in a while because I've been focusing way more on the label. But when I think back on my favorite points in my journey so far, it would be that Discord server and playing video games with people who like my music.
Fair enough. You are absolutely speaking my language. So I want to say, as a bona fide Discord addict for like a year, I loved the concept of private social media platforms. That's to me what it strikes me as, is like you create a server and you've got a social media, but it's, depending on the privacy constraints, it could be admit only. Like you fill it full of people are going to be the right demographic for it. Likewise, Threads, I am a diehard fanboy. Like I treat it like my public social media, or sorry, my public Discord server. So
What do
yeah,
you mean
no,
by that?
I mean, so I comparatively have had better success on Threads than any other platform, and
Okay.
I credit that to my yapping instinct. If we're being honest, I do not take my musician social medias very seriously in a business sense, because my
Right.
platform is built around adult humor. If we're being totally honest.
Nice.
So, but I mean, like it is a means to an end, right? It's like, don't get me
Mhm.
wrong, I thoroughly enjoy interacting with people on the internet. I've made great friends that I talk to off platform, but ultimately the attention garnered by call it a shit post, serves as a
Yeah,
feedback loop to reinforce the attention on my own music, right? It's like I'm doing this thing for a reason. So yeah, no,
absolutely.
you sound very privy to the exact same platforms that I love most. So
Amazing.
I like that. Um, wow, just totally lost my train of thought. What do you think? Like, if you were going to give some advice to artists entering the scene nowadays, especially from a label perspective, what would you tell them to help them out?
Uh, it's an excellent question that I probably should be able to answer easily. It's just so hard because like no piece of advice actually sums everything up enough. Um, I I think it's super important to be very, very, very focused on the effort that you're putting in, or anyone, like a new artist. Um, I have found that all of my biggest like increases in like song performance and all of my biggest leveling up moments were when I really doubled down on a very specific thing and stopped spending my efforts on tons of other things. So when I said, okay, I'm just going to release music and promote it with ads, like doing that, getting really good at that was the biggest thing that leveled me up. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was doing all of my other little things that I had on the side. Um, it's crazy how much better I was able to get at something that I thought there was no way I could get better at this. Like this is it, how it is. You make an ad. How could you get better at making this ad? But there are so many little things that I didn't know I could get better at in this one area, and I think that focus has been the main reason that I've increased in my like Spotify presence with the label and with my artist project.
I love it personally. Focus. I think we can summarize it to just that, right? I think that artists spread themselves so thin, and you have
Yeah.
to almost because it's not enough just to be a musician nowadays. You have to be, like a pseudo online influencer and a
Right.
promoter and a cheerleader and all of
Yep.
the extras that come with it. So I think telling people to narrow their focus and really refine and hone the skills that they are best cut out for, and collaborating with somebody else or with another team to help make the other things flow. That seems to me like the most efficient way to do big things quickly.
Totally. And there is also definitely an aspect of like trying things at the beginning to find something, because until you try things, you're not going to know if they work. But once you find that little nugget, like that's the time that I would suggest trying to focus on just the nugget.
Focus on the nugget. I love it. If somebody wanted to release with your label specifically, what would you tell them? What would be the process for them?
There is a link on all of our social media channels and on our website. It's the link in the bio. Click on that link, and then one of the three buttons is submit a demo. So you just go there, put in your MP3, and that's pretty much it.
Easy, frictionless, streamlined. I like it. We've talked about a lot about the label. I guess let's head back to where you're at with your own music, which, like I don't know if you are taking a break to focus on this because it sounds like you're very deeply involved and tuned into it. But if we can flash back to, say, for example, the song you put out 3 years that was doing numbers, what did you use to make it? What is the start to finish process of making a song? What does that look like for you?
I like to sit down and just crank out a full idea of a song in one sitting. I used to call it a music kata, where basically I sit down, set a timer, and then I would have to have an outline of an entire song. So a verse, a chorus, a verse, and a chorus, at least at a minimum. And almost all of them sucked like super bad. But every 10 or so, I would be a pretty decent idea in my mind. And so I would just pick off the top of all of those and then try to finish those ones that I thought were the best. So it always starts with a crazy outline. The one I had released a handful of years ago that did well, that one is pretty similar to how it was the very first day that I made it. A lot of the elements are the same. It's just better mixed, and it was mastered, and I got vocals put on top of it. Um, but I really like using most of my inspiration comes from just whatever season it is. So I made that one in the winter, and the like background ethereal atmosphere sounds are singing ice. Have you ever heard of singing ice?
Yes, but I couldn't describe off the top of my head what it sounds like. I immediately snapped to Tibetan singing bowls, and I know that's not right.
It's it's this like sound that's created in a lake when ice cracks in the winter, and it sounds almost like a laser gun from Star Wars. It's really really cool. And so having a bunch of those sounds, like if you record that, it has a really weird, like daunting sound to it. So I put that in the verse, used a bunch of ice sounds, um, and took a lot of inspiration from artists like Vice Tone and Alan Walker, and that's how I created that one. And that's how I do most of the songs currently. I I've only released two songs this year. One of them, or both of them, were this fall. But hopefully I'll be back on doing like at least six a year. Would be a nice middle ground for me between label stuff and personal stuff.
Sounds like a good uh, organization of labor, given all you've got going on with the label stuff. If I could ask some more details about your music making process,
Yeah,
what kind of DAW equipment, VSTs do you snap to? What are your like go-to instruments and utilities?
I love FL Studio. That's the DAW of choice that I use. Um, my most frequently used VST is probably just going to be Serum. Um, that's usually where my basses come from. That's where my leads come from. But I do use Silent a lot for just like chords and filler sounds. I really want to do more real instruments. I love acoustic guitar. I love the way that just like a good heavy electric guitar sounds in an indie rock track. So those two things are something that I've been working into my songs a lot more. Piano as well. Like I love having just like a very simple verse with some organic instruments and then have a chorus or a drop that has all of the electronic elements in it.
Love it. Yeah, no, I was gonna say, Serum comes up pretty much with every single electronic artist nowadays. I
Yep.
haven't heard Silent mentioned yet, and I was gonna say that was actually the first like oscillator VST I ever touched. Like I want to say like going on like 10, 12 years ago. So it's funny to hear
Whoa.
that one come up again.
Yeah, that was my first one that I ever bought. Like I bought FL Studio, but then the first like synth that I bought was Silent.
Would you have, I guess, any piece of work in particular that you are really proud of that you feel like defines your music personally that you would put people onto?
The one that I think defines my work the most is not the most popular one, but it's a song that I got inspiration for like 6 years ago. I put the most of it together a couple years ago, and then it took me a few more years to finish. But it's called "Soft Slippers, Rough Critters," and it's kind of a Christmas song, but kind of not.
Kind of a Christmas song. Perfect timing. Let me screen here and see if I can find some more good questions to pick your brain with.
Sure thing.
I want to ask about, so you have a unique position as a label admin where you get to talk with like a wide variety of artists. Has that lined up many collaborative opportunities for you? Do you organize collaborations between other artists? What has been your experience working with other people actually making the music?
I I do a pretty bad job of collaborations with other artists, unless it's like a vocalist. But other producers, I'm so bad at collaborations with them. Most of the collaborations I set up are between other artists, but I have recently been like, if I get a demo and there's no vocals on it, but the instrumental is amazing, I prefer releasing tracks with vocals on my label just because they tend to perform better. So I'll offer to write the lyrics, get the melody down, and then send it to a vocalist. And that way I'll be able to get a release out with less effort, but it still be like like my own, like my being was put into that track. I just don't have to do everything. That has been way easier to do with like getting demos sent in because I have so many choices. I can hear something that inspires me and I can just sit down, write out some lyrics, ask them if they like them, if they would want to collaborate on it. And that's like a super easy pipeline to start collaborations with artists.
So when you say that you write some lyrics and reach out to them, how do you typically go about doing it? Are you just hitting them with a message like, "Hey, I got this track. Do you want to hop on it?" Is it that simple?
It's usually they have a track. I invite myself to hop on it. I send them what I made, and if they like it, then we can do something together. If they don't, then no hard feelings. But I prefer to have something that I have done with their track to give to them on my first message to them, so that they don't have to think about it too hard.
No, I like that. Coming armed with some demonstration of value, I think, is so much better than like three fire emojis and let's work.
Yes,
Well,
exactly. Yeah, I don't do the let's collaborate and then just leave it at that. That's a hard way to start a collaboration.
you mentioned organizing collaborations for other people. Has that worked successfully, and what's the process like there? Is it just more of the same? Hey, I know somebody that I think you'd work well together with.
Exactly. And I send them some of their work, and then I contact that other person. I'm like sending each artist's work to the opposite person. If they both agree, I'll put them in an email chain together and just let them go. A lot of that is placing producers with vocalists that I really like. A lot of producers have a hard time finding vocalists to work with, and also paying them to work with them. some vocalists will work for just like a split of the song, but a lot of good ones require some sort of upfront payment. So I can offer the upfront payment if I like their instrumental enough so that I can get the song turned into something that I think sounds really cool. Uh, those songs that I do that for, they don't always like work out marketing wise, but I'm always glad that I did them because I think they sound really cool. And at the end of the day, that's way more important to me.
Most definitely. No, I like it. And especially I like that the business is really going out of their way to support the artists by gambling on an upfront cost of hiring a vocalist. Have you ever had a situation where you paid for a vocalist and then it proceeded to flop afterwards?
I haven't had any where it just totally flopped. I've had some that I don't know if they're gonna break even. Um, but I haven't had any that haven't made anything back. Um, the license that I do with the artist is a 10-year license. So essentially I'm mainly just trying to make it back within 10 years. They might. I'm not sure. But I don't care too much. I'll just move on to the
Sure, yeah.
next one.
I'm not digging for dirt on your artists. More rather,
Oh
I
no, yeah,
guess
no. I don't think so.
it's a
Yeah.
it's a segue into the question. Have you in your time in this field, do you think you've kind of developed a sense when you hear a track to know if it's going to be marketable or not? And if you have, what kind of elements typically speak to a marketable song?
The only main thing that I've noticed is like songwriting. The songwriting itself seems to be very important. So I look for songs that I feel grabbed by the songwriting. Usually, and even in EDM tracks where like the most hype part of the song tends to be instrumental, like during the drop. Most of the time the verses are the most like attract like the best ads that I'm running are for the verses of these songs. So that leads me into a more of a songwriting focus, partly because it seems to do better. I also just like it more. But aside from that, like I don't try to think about is this song marketable or not. I'm really just like, am I tapping my foot? Is it catchy? Do I like it a lot? I'm okay with spending money on a song and it flopping. Um, if I really like it, I'm still like, I'll tell the artist like, it didn't do as great as I hoped it would, but I still like it, and I think it'll find an audience eventually. But yeah, no, I really don't know. I don't even try to figure that stuff out.
Wholesome. It's almost got like to me this like very slight element of playing the stock market, but with like musical pieces instead of businesses.
That's true. There's definitely it's just like take Wall Street bets, make it music and slightly less stupid, and then that's it.
Exactly. Well, so I just had a couple more questions for you, honestly. I was gonna say, as a label, especially one with an emphasis on, finding vocalists for these artists, what's your take on splice vocals?
I've released songs with splice vocals in them. I'm not like super opposed to them. They're usually pretty repetitive, so I don't like them for those reasons. Uh, the further the label grows, the more I can just reject songs that use stock vocals because I have other options. So it's definitely more attractive to me to have original vocals. The biggest problem with splice vocals though is that they get caught up in all of the content ID stuff. And so we can release a song and then all of a sudden the content creators that use that song are getting like copyright notifications and getting their live streams muted because they're using our music when the system that's behind the content ID is just picking up on that vocal sample. And whoever uploaded that song to content ID in the first place, they're breaking the rules of the content ID programs. The distributors shouldn't be allowing that, but that's kind of a problem that I'm just left to deal with as the label owner, and especially since we are focused on giving like Twitch streamers soundtracks to their Twitch streams, that becomes a pretty big problem. So I'm monitoring our own Twitch streams, seeing what's getting muted, contacting those labels, contacting the Audible Magic who does the content ID, and just trying to get all of those songs taken down so that our music can be streamed. That process is made so much easier if I just don't use splice vocals.
Cool. That is a very solid justification, I think. And that
Yeah.
also that's been my personal struggle too. As a musician who is not personally a great vocalist, I have been left with splice vocals on many of occasion, and I'm starting to gravitate myself towards using original vocals, even if they tend to be a little bit rough around the edges, for the select purposes of, like, I understand how brutal the moderation in Twitch streams can be with copyright, and I want people to be able to play the music and use it. So
Yeah.
having to, monitor the Twitch streams like CCTV cameras looking for violations sounds like a job that I wouldn't personally want to have, but I applaud you for doing it.
I wish I didn't have to do it, but I appreciate the applause.
What's been your relationship and experience with other labels? Do you do any cross-label collaboration? Do you have to, like, follow any etiquette to avoid stepping on each other's toes? Do you find that you have more opportunities to discourse with other labels now?
A bit. I haven't talked to a ton of them, and I've only done a handful of cross-label collaborations. The only reason I don't do more is because anything that adds friction to my current process just like is time spent not marketing the music or doing my own music. So the little bit of cost of having to go out of my way to like alter a contract or to like hear someone else out in collaborations, I prefer not to do that at this point just because it's time that I don't spend promoting, and that is like the number one thing for me right now is just push the music, grow the streaming pool, get better music, grow the streaming pool, and iterating on that.
I love it. You have contributed something to this visit that I was unable to find anywhere else yet. So I really appreciate your time, Alex. Where can people find you?
If they search Sporation Music, they will find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok for now at least until TikTok is shut down. Our main platform, if you're an artist and you want to check us out, then Threads is probably the best one. That's where I talk to artists. And then if you are someone who wants to consume the music, use it in your Twitch stream, then Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts is where you can find us.
Love it. Do you have any closing thoughts or things that you'd like to let viewers know?
Uh, I've really enjoyed the journey. It sucked a lot, but it's also been very fun. And I hope you have fun with it too.
Thanks. I plan on it. It has been so great having you, Alex. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. Thank you so much for your time. You've been a great guest.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.